capabilities. The IDF said it also attacked targets in the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon, killing several Hezbollah commanders. Minutes before the initial attack, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a defiant speech at the UN General Assembly in New York. He said the offensive against Hezbollah would continue until it was safe for Israelis to return home. The Iranian president called the attack a war crime, while his foreign minister said the US was complicit because of Israel's use of US bunker buster bombs. Kamala Harris has given details of tough new measures she says will strengthen US border security and enforce immigration rules if she wins the presidential election in November. Speaking in Douglas, Arizona, Ms. Harris said she intends to reform the immigration system to make it more effective. Here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
Kamala Harris has faced criticism for not visiting the southern US border for over 3 years. But with this event in Arizona, she attempted to reclaim immigration as an issue on which Democrats can be trusted. She promised to extend recent restrictions that ban asylum claims for migrants who cross the border illegally. The number of illegal border crossings reached record highs during the Biden-Harris administration, but have recently fallen sharply since tougher policies were introduced. Immigration is one of the top concerns for American voters, and it's an issue on which Donald Trump enjoys a significant advantage.
The American pop star Chappell Roan has cancelled appearances at 2 festivals this weekend after receiving a barrage of online criticism for refusing to endorse Kamala Harris in the presidential election. The LGBT singer said in a recent interview there were problems on both sides of US politics. She subsequently added that while she despised Donald Trump and would vote for Ms. Harris, she believed the Democrats had failed her community. World news from the BBC. More than 40 people have been killed across 5 American states after Hurricane Helene cut a swathe of destruction through the southeast of the country. The worst affected state was not Florida, where Helene made landfall, but South Carolina, where at least 17 people were killed, including 2 emergency workers. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he's raised US concerns about Beijing's support for Russia in talks with his Chinese counterpart on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. He told Wang Yi that China was fueling the Russian war machine and threatened further sanctions. Hundreds of emperor penguin chicks that were feared to have died when a wayward iceberg blocked entry to their colony have survived after all. A satellite image shared with the BBC by the British Antarctic Survey shows signs of life at the Halley Bay in Antarctica. Georgina Ranard has the details.
The huge walls of the iceberg that came to a stop in front of Halley Bay sealed off the penguin colony's newly hatched chicks from their mothers out hunting for food. The group had only recently reformed after a catastrophic breeding failure. In the dark Antarctic winter, scientists had no way of knowing its fate. But when the sun returned, they could finally see the birds on satellite pictures. The images show a tiny brown smudge on an expanse of white, showing there was life in the colony. But the iceberg weakened the sea ice, and the chicks need it to last until December. If it breaks off, they won't make it.
World football's governing body FIFA has suspended Argentina's World Cup winning goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez for 2 matches for what it described as 2 separate incidents of offensive behaviour. It comes after the player made a lewd gesture with the Copa America trophy and pushed a television camera during matches against Chile and Colombia earlier this month. The 32-year-old will now miss Argentina's next 2 World Cup qualifiers against Venezuela and Bolivia in October. BBC News.
Hello, I'm Jackie Leonard, and you're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service. Dawn has broken over Beirut to reveal huge plumes of smoke rising into the morning sky above the city. There were many Israeli strikes overnight directed at Hezbollah targets. They followed attacks on Friday against Hezbollah headquarters in the south of the city. Reports say the target was the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. It's not clear if he is alive or dead. Earlier, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had given a combative speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. We'll be hearing from there in a moment. First, though, our correspondent in Beirut, Hugo Bachega.
Scenes of war in Beirut. Hezbollah's conflict with Israel returning to its stronghold of Tahrir, with a series of massive explosions and an escalation with unpredictable consequences. An attack so powerful that was seen and heard across the city. Lebanon now on the brink of another war. Chaos on the streets, and Tahrir in southern Beirut now looking like Gaza. Hezbollah's backers, Iran, say this strike marks a dangerous game-changing escalation in the conflict. For Israel, it's a strike targeting the heart of Hezbollah's operations.
Moments ago, the Israel Defense Forces carried out a precise strike on the central headquarters of the Hezbollah terror organization that served as the epicenter of Hezbollah's terror. Hezbollah's central headquarters was intentionally built under residential buildings in the heart of the Dahia in Beirut, as part of Hezbollah's strategy of using Lebanese people as human shields.
ما حصل يوم الثلاثاء ويوم الأربعاء.
This was apparently the target, one of Israel's main enemies. Hezbollah's longtime and powerful leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Israel says it is still checking whether he was hit and remains alive. Hezbollah and Iran say reports he's dead are not true. For almost a year, there has been concern that something like this could spark a wider regional conflict. Tonight, there are two unanswered questions: whether Hassan Nasrallah is still alive, and if the Middle East will be engulfed by war.
That was Hugo Bashega. Well, Beirut is 9,000 kilometres from New York. Only a few minutes separated Israel's strike from Mr. Netanyahu's speech to the UN. Israel has been much criticised at this year's General Assembly meeting. The Prime Minister insisted that the true villain was Iran.
If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East. Far from being lambs led to the slaughter, Israel's soldiers were fought back with incredible courage and with heroic sacrifice. And I ask another message for this assembly, for the outside this ball. We are winning.
That was rather less table thumping from the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who said at a news conference that diplomacy was the best way to peace.
It is a legitimate and important objective for Israel to again create an environment in which people can get back to their homes. The question is, what's the best way to do that? What is the most effective, sustainable way to do that? We believe, many other countries who joined us in putting out a call for a ceasefire for 21 days, believe that the best way to do that is through diplomacy, through a ceasefire, and then reaching an agreement.
Well, listening to both men was our US State Department correspondent Tom Bateman, and he began with Mr. Netanyahu's message.
He walked into the United Nations here to a question which was thrown at him by one of the reporters as soon as he got into the door. Is he going to agree to a ceasefire? Is he interested in a ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon? He didn't answer that question to the reporter, and then when he got into the hall, he didn't answer it there either. Instead, what there was a speech of a defiant tone, vowing to continue the fight against Israel's adversaries. And he spoke at length about Iran, as he had many times in the past, but he was effectively saying that the world had a choice, either to back Israel, which he described as the side of blessings, or Iran, which he described as the side of curses. And when it came to Hezbollah, once again, there was a similar message that we heard from him on his way to New York, when he said that the Israeli army would fight with full force and continue what is at the moment an air offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So this was what I think many observers would have seen as a very bellicose speech. The message was very, very clear. And as soon as he left, we then had the reports of these multiple explosions in Beirut. And the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Netanyahu's office, released a picture of him ordering the strike, or giving the go-ahead for the strike, from his hotel room here in New York. So if ever there was a message to the Americans relating to their calls for a ceasefire and urging restraint from Mr. Netanyahu, it was pretty clear to them from that image that he wasn't listening.
The Israelis have in fact been talking about taking out the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, haven't they?
Well, that is being reported in the Israeli media that they believe that he may have been the target of this strike. But it's interesting in terms of the diplomacy here because Anthony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, spoke after Mr. Netanyahu. He held a news conference here at the UN and was asked specifically about this question, wasn't this or isn't this a legitimate target for the Israelis to go after the head of Hezbollah? And he said that, of course, the Americans shared their objectives to defeat and effectively disarm or something a threat Hezbollah, but they said that all the sides here also had a choice that he described between diplomacy or more conflict. And so you have the Americans urging the Israelis, pleading with them effectively to go down the path of diplomacy. Of course, what we're seeing on the ground is the exact opposite.
Israel and the US, its biggest friend, seem completely at odds at this stage.
What is the real driver of this relationship? And remember that the US every year, by statute in law, provides Israel with $3.8 billion worth of weapons. In congressional law, the US commits to something called qualitative military edge, so that Israel is always better armed than other countries, its adversaries in the Middle East. Plus, they've put a lot of supplemental weapons to Israel, delivered a lot of extra stuff since October the 7th. What we've had in terms of the diplomacy over the last year is a fractious, at times dysfunctional, and at times pretty fraught relationship, and one that started out after October the 7th, Mr. Biden flying to Israel to embrace Benjamin Netanyahu. So that is always underlying this, is the support of the White House for the Israelis, but they have become exasperated with some of the things they've asked for not being listened to. And that includes humanitarian aid into Gaza, but then crucially, it is about the ceasefire for hostage release deal in Gaza. And that is where I think we've seen the relations fray diplomatically.
That was Tom Bateman in New York. Brazil has an online gambling habit. The popularity of sports gambling surged in 2018 when a new law legalized online betting. Ads like these promoting online betting are driving the gambling boom.
Entra confiante no jogo. Sporting Bet.
Every month, people in Brazil who are on social benefits spend $500 million in gambling, most on football and other sporting bets. Now, the government is considering blocking those who receive such payments from spending the money in online betting. So just how big is online gambling in Brazil? Journalist Tim Vickery joins the newsroom from Rio.
It's a massive market. 24 million Brazilians are involved in online betting. They're spending a total of nearly $4 billion a month. That figure includes around 20% of social benefits paid out by the government, money which is paid out to keep families going and is not supposed to end up in the bank accounts of betting companies, many of whom don't even pay taxes.
So talk to us about the impact of online betting on the poorest people who are in Brazil.
So it's so easy just with a mobile phone. It's so quick and easy to hand money over. People are absolutely bombarded by adverts featuring many famous current and former footballers. And the online betting thing, it offers hope and it offers excitement. And those are two commodities which are very, very powerful if you are poor. If you are poor, you are looking for hope and you are looking for excitement. And those poor can be very vulnerable to this. And all of the rhetoric from the Brazilian government as it tries to combat this problem is all about preserving, protecting the Brazilian family.
And it's also affecting the economy generally, isn't it? There's been lower than expected consumer spending, and that's being blamed on gambling.
Indeed, yes. And here we go back to the problem that so many of these companies are not paying taxes, and they're taking money away from cinemas, for example, and other regulated businesses. Now, as you mentioned, online betting became legal in 2018, and it was supposed to be regulated within 2 years. The Bolsonaro government did absolutely nothing over its 4 years. It's a stunning case of government negligence. And the current government are rushing now to try and bring in legislation which will force the betting companies to register, will force them to have offices in Brazil, and will force them to pay taxes. That's probably the most important part of the package, which is being mentioned at the moment.
And how might prohibition work? I mean, is it even possible to stop people using their money, albeit benefit money, how they want to spend it?
The proposal at the moment is as follows, that once the industry is regulated, You can use national insurance numbers to trace whether people who are receiving benefits are spending those benefits on online gambling. If that is happening, then the first step would be to send a warning together with advice on combating addiction. If there is no change, then the second step would be to switch the person in the family who's receiving the benefits. So we're not at this stage talking about, the Brazilian government is not talking about removing benefits from people, it's talking about finding a way to protect families who are vulnerable from the consequences of online betting.
Oliver Bromley looks different. He has a condition that makes non-cancerous tumours grow on his nerves, so his face is covered in lumps and he has only one eye. And on a recent visit to London, where he was receiving hospital treatment, he was asked to leave a nearby restaurant because of his appearance. He's been talking to my colleague Anita Anand about what happened next.
I've never really been directly discriminated against as I was on that occasion. I went into the local park and I actually bawled my eyes out. I called my wife, who came to my rescue. She consoled me and we worked on a plan of action going forward. And I had such huge support from the hospital staff with whom I shared the story, as well as my wider family. So I felt very reassured after that.
Did they ever apologise?
I used their website, contact details, firstly to complain and then to ask for some sort of justification for why they acted in that manner. They didn't reply, so I took it to the police, who were very helpful. They came and interviewed me. They've reported it as a hate crime.
You say that you don't mind and you've become used to children in particular sort of staring. I mean, do they ask questions, and do you mind if people say, look, actually, what has happened here? Because it is a very visible condition.
Yes. No, it is. I don't go up to a person in a wheelchair and I don't ask them, why are you in a wheelchair? A person might have lost a limb. I don't ask. I think somebody with a facial difference is no different to that. I don't always think it's helpful to ask, but it is always how am I feeling at the time. If somebody asks me and I can see that they sincerely, I'm quite a good judge of character, I have no problem answering that question.
You came on public transport and you haven't let it diminish you.
It is my normality, so one does get used to it. Interestingly enough, it affects my family. My wife and I mainly, and she travels with me a lot, and she gets fed up with people staring, you know. She might go up to a child and say, he's different, this is the way God's made him, and we try and create a learning experience from it.
You're a very gentle soul. How have you managed to stay positive and gentle when you have gone through more than most people?
I have a very strong faith. I believe God's called me to this. I have a purpose in life to share this with others. And having a supportive family, there's no substitute for that.
Oliver Bromley. Reminder of our main news: Israeli warplanes have launched fresh attacks on buildings in South Beirut, where the military service is storing weapons. This is the BBC World Service.
And that's where I'll say goodbye to the World Service for now and start the day here on BBC Radio 4. Good morning, I'm Tom Sanders. It's Saturday, the 28th of September, the birthday of John Finnemore, who has, of course, created many a wonderful comedy for us. He was born on this date in 1977 in Reading, Berkshire, where the sun will rise today at 7:05 officially and set at 7:15 this evening. The shipping bulletin isn't too far off. Then at 5:30, the latest news, sport, and a look at the papers. First, though, we have a new series starting on Monday, but with a difference. Lady Swindlers.
Families must be looked after when a member is in prison. Everybody was acquainted with my whole history. No drinking before a raid.
Lucy Worsley revisits the audacious and surprising crimes of women from the past.
When they got safely out of the store, they would jump into their waiting getaway cars. This was an alternative route to become a modern woman.
Pursuing convicts, thieves, and hustlers.
He looks utterly terrified. He's got this kind of dead-eyed stare.
Lady Swindlers with Lucy Worsley, starting this Monday at 3:30 on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. Back to this morning, and let's have a word with Matt Taylor. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Tom, and good morning to you too. Let's take you to the open waters first thing this Saturday morning with a shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 05:05 on Saturday the 28th of September. There are warnings of gales in the Viking, Seven Sierra, Forties, Fisher, German Bight, Fitzroy, Seoul, Fastnet, and Shannon. The general synopsis at midnight. Atlantic low 998, moving steadily northeast. Expected 150 miles west of Seoul, 986 by midnight tonight. High Fitzroy 1028, losing its identity. The area forecast for the next 24 hours. Viking, north at 0, south at 0, 40s. Northwesterly 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 except in north at 0. Backing westerly or southwesterly 2 to 4 later. Showers good. Cromarty, Forth, Tyne, Dogger, Fisher, German Bight, Humber, Thames. Northwest 4 to 6, but 6 to gale 8 at first in Fisher and German Bight. Backing west or southwest 3 to 5. Showers good. Dover, White, Portland. Northwest 3 to 5, becoming variable 2 to 4. Then southeast 4 to 6 later. Showers
2 to 4.
good.
4 to 6.
Plymouth, Biscay.
Up to 6. 100%. Oh, yeah, baby, come on now.
3 to 5. Increasing 5 to 7 later. Perhaps
5 to
gale
7.
later.
10 to 8.
Showers good, occasionally poor.
5 to 11.
Fitzroy, Seoul. South or southeast 3 to 5, becoming
3 to
cyclonic
5.
7 to severe gale 9.
2 to
Perhaps
7.
storm 10 later in Seoul. Rain good, becoming moderate or poor.
That's so funny, that is.
Variable 2 to 4, becoming southeast 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Showers good.
Oh my god, let me go one time.
Sunset.
Maybe go body. Come on now.
Becoming southeast 3 to 5, increasing 7 to severe gale 9 later.
Really? Oh my god.
Occasionally poor. Irish Sea. Variable 2 to 4, becoming southeast 4 to 6.
You sound funny as fuck, mate. I'm saying, really. You're looking at an apple, really. I can't believe
Shannon.
it.
Variable 2 to 4, becoming southeast 6 to gale 8. Then cyclonic 7 to severe gale 9 later. Rain good, occasionally poor. Rockall, Mali. West or southwest 2 to 5, backing southeast 4 to 6 later. Occasionally 7 later in Rockall. Showers good. Hebrides, Bailey. Cyclonic 4 to 6, occasionally 7 in Bailey. Showers good, occasionally poor. Faroes. Northwest 4 to 6, becoming variable.
Good night, mate.
Then cyclonic 4 to 6.
Can you bring me a dildo? Because I'm a cunt.
Good, occasionally poor. Southeast Iceland. Northwesterly at first in northeast.
I don't know what to do. I think I'll wear this.
Southeasterly 4 to 6.
Yeah, I will.
7,
Yeah.
perhaps gale 8 later. Wintry showers, good, occasionally poor. And now the weather report from coastal stations for 400. Tarry automatic, west by north 2, slight rain, 6 miles.
Slight
1,008.
rain.
They're falling.
It takes the piss. It's British. You know, fucking Great Britain. It rains. Yes, it fucking does all the time.
1,017, they're falling. Lerwick, northwest by west 5, slight rain, 5 miles, 1,010, rising slowly. Lookers, west-southwest 2, more than 38 miles, 1,017, rising more slowly.
Lady comes to me and says, sucky,
West-northwest 3,
rising slowly.
1,017, rising.
Rising, still rising. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
North 6, 11 miles, 1,017. Jersey, north-northwest 3, 27 miles, 1,020, rising more slowly.
It's still rising. Slowly. It rolls it. Oh, look at that. Oh my god, it's getting bigger.
Silly automatic, north-northwest 3, 19 miles, 1,023, rising more slowly. Valencia, northeast 2, 27 miles, 1,024, falling slowly.
It's making me laugh, as I tell you.
West by north 3,
Yeah.
18 miles,
I've got fucking all my gold in the jewels. It's crazy.
and Mali,
I've got this out. I've just got this out and put it back in again. Because I'm like, fuck it, I need some money. You know.
1,019, now falling. And that brings me to the weather forecast for the inshore waters of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, valid for the
I'll
following
just take
24
some
hours.
tablets.
Weather forecast for 500. The general situation, fresh and strong northwesterly air flow covers all inshore watering areas before winds back and decrease through Saturday as high pressure blows from the southwest. An Atlantic low then brings gales or severe gales to the southwest overnight. And
I can wear that, but no, I think I'll wear my shirt. I just wear my shirt.
to branching head, including Auckland. West or northwest 4 to 6, becoming variable 2 to
4 to 6.
Then southwest 4 to 6 later.
4 to 6
Showers,
later.
Occasional rain in north, good, occasionally poor.
Occasionally poor, but sometimes I pour and I've got a bit of gold and I'm rich again. Yeah, I'm not rich. I'm fucking not rich.
Showers, fair, good. From Berwick-upon-Tweed to Italy. Northwest 3 to 5, backing west or southwest 2 to 4. Showers at first, good. Whitby to Gibraltar Point. Northwest 4 or 5, backing west or southwest 2
Oh,
to 4. Showers at first, good. Gibraltar Point to North Foreland. Northwesterly 4 or 5, backing westerly or southwesterly 2 to 4. Showers at first, good.
Good. That's amazing.
North Foreland to Southern. Northwesterly 3 to 5, becoming variable 3 or less, then southerly or southeasterly 3 to 5 later.
Oh, fucking hell. I'll tell you, I've got a print. I've got to sort out a printer out in a minute.
Line region. Northwest 3 or 4, becoming variable 3 or less, then southeast 4 to 6 later. Then
Oh my God. Look at all this
from line
cabbage.
ridges to land zones,
There's
including
one there.
Sicily.
Vitamin B.
North or northwest, becoming variable 2 to 4.
Food
Then
supplement.
southeast 6 to Gale
Really?
later. Mainly there, good. Land's End to St David's Head.
Healthy joints.
Northwest 2 to 4, becoming variable 3 or less. Then southeast 6 to Gale
Oh,
later.
look at that. Oh, my God.
Showers at first, good. St David's Head to Great Orme Head and St George's Channel. Northwest backing southwest
Immune health.
3 or 4.
That's
Then
zinc.
southeast 4 to 6 later. Showers at first, good. Great Orme Head to the Mull of Galloway. North or northwest, backing west 2 to 4. Then south or southeast 2 to 5 later. Showers, good. Isle of Man. West or northwest 3 or 4. Soon backing west or southwest. Then southeast 4 or 5 later. Isolated showers at first, then fair, good. From Loch Foyle to Carlingford Loch. West, backing south or southeast later, 3 to 5. Showers, good. Mull of Galloway to Mull of Kintyre between the Firth of Clyde and the North Channel. Westerly, backing southerly or southeasterly later, 3 to 5. Showers, good. From the Mull of Kintyre to Ardnamurchan Point. West or northwest 3 to 5, backing southwest 3 or 4, then south or southeast 4 or 5 later. Showers fair later, good. Ardnamurchan Point to west, variable 2 to 4, becoming southwesterly 2 to 5, occasionally 6 later in north. Showers good, occasionally poor. And finally, Shetland Isles. Northwest 4 to 6, becoming variable 2 to 4 later. Rain or showers good, occasionally moderate. And that completes this morning's Shipping Podcast. Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. This is BBC Radio 4. It's 5:05 on Saturday, the 28th of September. Good morning, this is News Briefing with Tom Sanders. With Wales launched more airstrikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut. Kamala Harris has pledged new measures to tighten security at the US borders. And in sport, England's cricketers have levelled the one-day international series, a thumping victory against Australia. There'll be more explosions in Beirut overnight, with Israeli warplanes launching waves of attacks on the Lebanese capital. Earlier, a strike hit Hezbollah's headquarters. Daniel Hagari is from the Israeli military.
The Israel Defense Forces carried out a precise strike on the central headquarters of the Hezbollah terror organization that served as the epicenter of Hezbollah's terror.
The attack was reportedly targeting the armed group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, but it's not known if he was in the buildings that were struck. The Lebanese authorities say at least 6 people have been killed. Our international editor, Jeremy
Ford, yeah. What's good, big man? Well, I'm actually feeling alive and everything. And I'm all prepared, ready to go out. I've got my bag with me. It's filled up with goodie bags. This gold ring, I'm going to put that back in the jeweller's and get some money. And I'll get it back later. I'll probably get about 160 for it, I reckon. Because I need a bit of money to live on. I've probably got about 30 quid, I think. But I can't check my bank because for some reason I went and I changed my details and fucking suddenly I couldn't fucking get back into my bank because what it was, I've got to wait up to 7 days for them to send me a code in the post, and I'm like, oh fuck it, you know what I mean? That's a pain in the ass because it really is a pain. I'm like, fuck it. So that's it really. I'm going to phone up to the jewelers and say, look, I need money in my account. You know, this is it. I've got enough food to last me another day, maybe 2 days, right? That's it. And then I'll run out of money. I'll run out of food. I'll run out of food. So I'll buy more food today, I think. I love Lady Diana. There she is.
Florida, where there's been serious disruption.
There she is. Oh, look at you. You've got the lovely lips. Oh, yeah.
To burning vehicles, burning homes, and as well as any traffic accident, as well as serious medical calls.
Northern Ireland's Health Minister Mike Nesbitt will be installed as the new leader of the Ulster Unionist Party at its annual conference today. It's Mr. Nesbitt's second spell in the job, which he previously held.
I'm going to wear my cream jacket today, I think I will.
Scientists say that hundreds of emperor penguins.
I could wear my brown leather, but
launched the entry to their colony.
I feel like being bright and out there, you know, like a big white fucking jacket.
The British Antarctic Survey shows signs of life.
I've got so many jackets, it's fucking mental.
Peter Fredwell is one of their researchers.
Quite a relief to see those brown stones on the ice, which we know are emperor penguins. Looking at the fact the colony is still there must have been some sort of a passage. They're quite tenacious.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields. Nothing is real. Yeah. Actually, do you know what I've done? I've put some artwork. Do you know? Have you seen that crystal ball? The crystal ball. Yeah, well, I've actually put that in all the bags. And a picture of my dad and a picture of me when I was selling pianos and I was laying on the settee. You know what I mean? Fucking like really fucked because I've been lifting pianos all day.
Chilly start out there though across the UK. Temperatures in some rural areas down to
I should have really. I've got a sort of printer out. It's a new printer, and it's fucking. I've got sort of wireless out.
Let's start the details across England and Wales because we do have 1 or 2 showers dotted around some western areas in particular, and closer to North Sea coast as well. The ones near North Sea coast will quickly fade away back out to sea as we go through this morning as the winds become a little bit more northwesterly and ease a touch. But we'll continue to see just 1 or 2 showers across northern England and Wales in particular. Most though, dry, sunny morning, a bit more cloud bubbling up into the afternoon. Cloudy to all during the second half of the day, probably parts of northern England. As for Northern Ireland, varying amounts of cloud to come and go through the day with a few isolated light showers. Not as breezy as yesterday, but once the sun's out, it still feels reasonably nice. Even though temperatures are down what we normally expect to stage in September. And for Scotland, a lot less windy as we go through the day. Cloudy compared with yesterday. Rest of the sunshine today, the further south and east you are. Some of that sunshine a little bit on the hazy side. Orkney, Western Isles, the Highlands and Argyll and Bute in particular will be rather cloudy at times, and it's here most susceptible to further outbreaks of rain on and off. Temperature across the UK today around 11 to 15.
Outbreaks of rain, really? Fuck it. I'll tell you what. I don't know what I'm doing.
Very much, Matt.
I've got my Burberry umbrella over there.
Describes the latest attacks on Beirut in its front page headline as Israel's warning to Iran. Its columnist, Patrick Coburn, suggests Benjamin Netanyahu is probably igniting a fire in the region that will never go out. The Guardian says the attempts to kill the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, even if he wasn't harmed, marks a staggering escalation on the Israeli side. Its analysis online also calls it an emphatic slap in the face for the Biden administration and its
I'll tell you what, actually,
in the Financial Times suggests US diplomacy appears adrift and impotent. In its online coverage, the Daily Telegraph describes targeting Hezbollah's Secretary General as a gamble extraordinaire, challenging Tehran to hit back. The Telegraph says that Iran will be mulling over whether a US-led coalition will come together again to shoot down a counterattack as it did in April. According to The Times, there are proposals to increase the cap on university fees by 13.5% over the next 5 years to £10,500. A Whitehall source says there are live discussions between ministers so that any final decision could need to be approved by the Chancellor. Boris Johnson's memoir, Unleashed, which is being serialised in the Daily Mail, reveals details of the moment when the former Prime Minister asked the armed forces if they could raid a Dutch warehouse holding AstraZeneca vaccines. His justification was that the EU had kidnapped the doses, which he said belonged to the UK. The Conservative leader was told the raid was feasible, but not without explaining why they were effectively invading a long-standing NATO ally.
Yeah, look. There's one jacket.
But in his words, it was nuts. The story is also Telegraph's
There's another jacket.
headline, Boris's war cry, COVID, invade Holland.
But I thought I'll go for this one. But now this doesn't look right.
By the Sun as Magnificent Maggie. The Guardian's film critic Peter Bradshaw
Who's this?
he was the grandest of grand days. While writing
hang
the
on.
Daily Telegraph, the theatre critic Neil Norman calls her a world-class performer whose appeal crossed generations. The Financial Times reports that Germany and France are calling for an urgent rethink of plans to roll out the EU's biometric border on the 10th of November. They say the main computer system won't be able to cope with the new entry-exit system that will require all non-EU citizens, including British visitors.
I'm not sure what to do. This is a bit too white, isn't it? It's a bit fucking. I don't know.
The European Commission said it was in close contact with member states.
If I take that out and put that on.
Could start on time. Times considers research suggesting that
Yeah, that looks right, doesn't it? That looks pretty cool, actually.
may be more of a curse than a blessing for a restaurant.
Yeah, I think I'll wear that. Yeah, I'll wear this.
Venues in New York found those with Michelin stars were more likely to close than those without. The Times says that one
Take this.
in London and France, the senior staff may see higher wages after an award and landlords more rent. The Times asks if chefs focus too much on pleasing the guide rather than their customers. Papers this morning now to the sports news and examining England's success in the one-day series against Australia, together with the rest of the day's news, is Jojo Black.
England's cricketers have levelled up their one-day international series against Australia at 2-2 after a massive 186-run victory in a rain-affected match at Lords. Eleanor Aldred reports.
After two heavy defeats in the first two games of the
Yeah,
series,
I think this is about what it is, yeah.
with bat and ball gave England a massive win by 186
Oh, look at this. Do you know what? When I was sat at the cafe, right, the other day, last week, I think it was, I looked and I was seeing an ambulance. I shit myself. I thought, there's an ambulance. They're going to come and get me. Fucking hell, they want me. They must be wanting me. I mean, what the fuck? You know, and I was shitting myself. I was like, fucking hell. And when they actually got into the fucking van, I said, look, mate, I'm fucking scared of that ambulance. I said, 18 years sectioned to fucking bits, right? And dragged into section units, fucking putting ambulances in vans and that shit and taking it into a section unit. I'm fucking scared of the fucking ambulance. I can't believe it. Right? And so I've got this look. Yeah, fucking. It's crazy, isn't it? Oh, my keys. There it is. And on here, there's a doctor. There's a doctor. Yeah, and there's a fucking nurse on here as well somewhere. Let's have a look. Where the fuck's the nurse? Where's that fucking nurse gone? Oh, there she is. Oh, look, she's fucking there. Look, there's a nurse. Look at that. Hello, Gordon. It's time for the depot. Now bend over. I'm going to stick a needle in your ass. Yeah. Well, fuck you, bitch. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what the fuck?
On Friday to draw level at 5-all. The USA have only lost the biennial contest once out of 14 editions.
Finally, let's glance back at some of the stories that were making news on this date in the earlier years was quite a long time ago. In 1923, the BBC produced its official programme guide, the Radio Times, for the first time, an anniversary marked 50 years later by Nationwide.
Until then, proud owners of crystal sets had clapped on their earphones in blissful ignorance of what they were about to receive. The newspapers wouldn't publish programme details unless they received the full advertising rates. The BBC wouldn't pay. The BBC's own journal was soon selling 500,000 copies, a fact that didn't escape the advertisers. But there were limits. John, later Lord Reith, the BBC's first general manager, was adamant that the Harpic advertisement should not be placed facing the Sunday pages.
The daily time that Big Ben chimes our radio time.
In more recent times, the former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie revealed in 2002 that she'd had a 4-year affair with John Major before he became Prime Minister. In 1995, the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and the PLO leader Yasser Arafat signed a deal at the White House, giving Palestinians control over much of the
Now, where's my fucking backing?
On this day 30 years ago, a car and passenger ferry, the MS Estonia, sank in the Baltic Sea with 950 people on board. 852 people died in all, about half of them were Swedish. A High Court judge ruled that the miners' strike was unlawful 40 years ago, but it had been called without a ballot by the National Union of Mine Workers. And that's News Briefing. Now, prayer for the day with Mariama Ifo-Dablies.
Good morning. September, for some, can be a time of new beginnings. Having spent a rather long time in education, first as a student and then as a teacher, this month meant preparing new timetables, new registers, and making sure that I had all the necessary equipment and materials for the academic year ahead. The uncertainty of a new season can be both exciting and daunting. Think of a child that has started at a new school, or a young person leaving home for the first time. For me, leaving London to head to university in Scotland was immense. I remember being rather tearful with my roommate on the first evening, after our families had helped us unpack and then left. There we were, the two of us, surrounded by boxes, crying, and realizing that this was the start of a new stage of our lives. Yet I had no idea that this new beginning would bring lifetime friendships, adventure, and useful life lessons. It was a special time. I learned so much about who I was and wasn't, and what I felt I could contribute to the world. And isn't that what new beginnings are all about? Holding what you already know and making room for new learning, new ways of thinking and being. As a Christian, my faith has helped me navigate so many new seasons. It's not that I always felt that everything would be okay. I couldn't claim that. Rather, my faith always pointed me to the fact that I wasn't alone. So today, I pray for courage, clarity, and open-heartedness in the face of new beginnings, and to be reminded that there are people there to walk alongside me.
Prayer for the day with Mariama Ifo-Dablies. Now, Radio 4, News Up.
I'm Mark Miodownik, and this is the sticky story of humanity. In this series, we're looking at the gluey and gloopy materials that are completely fascinating, and yet totally underappreciated, even though they hold the modern world together. Not only that, but the journey of human progress couldn't have happened without them. The story of humanity is surprisingly sticky. This time, we're focusing on the substance that is part of all of our lives and is in everything from your clothes and your shoes to your washing machine and your laptop.
It's become so ubiquitous that we hardly give it a thought. It's difficult to transport yourself back a couple of centuries to when the substance was first introduced into Europe and the United States and greeted something on the order of a miracle. It was pliable, elastic. If you pulled it, it snapped back, and it was waterproof properties that you couldn't find in any other substance: wood, metal, wool. And so it immediately became clear that this was a magical substance that could potentially change the world.
This is author Charles Slash, and he's talking, of course, about rubber. Charles has written a history of this magical material, and as a material scientist myself, I still view rubber as something of a miracle. Rubber soles on our feet give us a spring in our step, while gripping the pavement so we don't slip. Rubber is also airtight, and thanks to that, we are now creatures that float on a cushion of air as we ride our bicycles through town or to speed down motorways. Because of rubber, our taps don't drip, and moisture doesn't seep through our windows. And let's not forget that rubber provides our ultimate security. It keeps our underpants from falling down. Now, you might not think of rubber as a sticky material, but grip is really just a reversible kind of stickiness that comes from rubber's ability to mold itself into nooks and crannies on surfaces, temporarily adhering itself to them. And rubber starts its life as the milky, gluey secretion of the rubber tree, latex. As we'll see in this episode, the story of how rubber changed the world is really the story of how people learned to tame and manipulate the stickiness of latex. Back in the 19th century, some of the greatest minds of the age put everything they had into doing just that.
Rubber, despite its wonderful magical possibilities, had severe limitations. Rubber had this fatal flaw. When the temperature rose, it became sticky and tacky, and when the weather became very cold, rubber became brittle. And so a lot of people on both sides of the Atlantic poured a lot of money. It was almost like the internet boom of the late 1990s. And so a lot of people went bankrupt as a result in that first round.
The quest to solve the puzzle of rubber's fatal flaw involved obsession, rivalry, genius, and a large slice of luck. But we'll be returning to the Industrial Revolution a bit later, because we're getting ahead of ourselves slightly. It turns out that thousands of years before any of this, the secrets of rubber had already been unlocked by ancient civilizations.
Well, the first users of rubber were in Mesoamerica, so Mexico, Central America, as early as 1600 BC, so 3,600 years ago. And those people were called the Olmec. So very early in Mesoamerican civilization, these people had perfected the art of rubber making with the materials that were available to them.
This is Mike Tarkanian, a material scientist from MIT, who studies the archaeology and uses of rubber by Mesoamericans.
And they used it for primarily the Mesoamerican ball game, this volleyball-like game. It wasn't just a sport, it was sort of a religious reenactment based around a bouncing rubber ball. But they also used it for sandals, medicine as a liquid, tools, joining handles to hammerheads.
Can you tell me a bit more about how we use it as a glue? And is it a good glue?
For the glue, or for covering a surface, you can use the material right out of the tree. Like you see how elastic up, you cut into the bark, and the latex that starts to flow. It's a good viscosity, it's very spreadable, it's really sticky. It gets all over you, you're gonna peel it off your skin afterwards. So it's a pretty good glue as engineered by nature.
But as well as using latex in its raw and natural form, Mike discovered that the ancient Mesoamericans had learned to modify it and alter its property.
I spent about a year just reading historical documents, and a bunch of different sources had mentioned processing or mixing the latex from the tree with a certain species of morning glory. Morning glory is a flowering plant, and when I went to Mexico to sort of verify this myself, I brought back latex from the tree, I brought back morning glories. When you add the morning glory juice to the latex, you transform the material from something that's sticky, dried out of the tree, is stiff and leathery, into something that's really elastic and really bouncy and really hot.
How does that change the mechanical properties of the rubber that's produced?
When you have a latex directly out of a tree, it's sort of like a bowl of spaghetti.
When Mike says spaghetti, he means at the molecular scale. Latex is made of many long-chain carbon molecules, all tangled together like spaghetti.
So if you grab one piece of spaghetti, you can pull that one piece of pasta right out of the bowl, and it's not connected to anything else. If you could somehow connect all those pieces of spaghetti together, then you have a network. And if you pull on that one piece, it's connected to another piece and another piece and another piece, and you can imagine then how that would be a more elastic configuration than if you were just going to pull one piece of spaghetti. So the Morning Glory also allows the text to create connections called crosslinks that enhances the mechanical properties and makes this material transform from something that's sticky into something that's rubbery.
Mike found in his experiment that by adding different amounts of Morning Glory juice to latex, he could tweak just how elastic the resulting rubber becomes. In this way, the ancient Americans invented the stretchy rubber band to bind stuff together, created the bouncing ball for their ceremonial games, and made hard-wearing rubber sandals to protect their feet. Fast forward a few thousand years, and when colonizers arrived from Spain, they encountered this bouncy elastic material for the first time and couldn't believe their eyes.
I couldn't believe it.
It really was like nothing else they'd seen before. Even so, to them, the stretchy material was just a curiosity. They took it home with them, but they couldn't yet see how it might fit into European technology. But that started to change in the 1700s, which is, incidentally, when rubber got its name.
So rubber was actually given its name by an 18th century scientist and philosopher named Joseph Priestley, who, when experimenting with rubber, noticed how useful it was for erasing pencil marks from paper.
Here's author Charles Slack again.
And from that rather prosaic discovery came the name rubber, a term that we still use.
Yeah, rubbing now is such a that's a property of this material that we sort of take for granted, isn't it? But pencils on paper, you couldn't get the graphite off the paper in any other way. And suddenly there's material that will stick to the graphite and suck it off the paper. And then what happened next? So I guess everyone started to just pile in and find other uses.
So it began to be used in a wide number of ways for people who wanted something that was elastic and waterproof. Rain hats, raincoats. Charles Mackintosh, he was a Scottish chemist, invented a process for putting layers of treated rubber between layers of cloth and developed the Mackintosh raincoat.
But rubber garments like the Mackintosh coat still had some major flaws. They became brittle in freezing temperatures and smelly and sticky in the heat. One man would eventually solve these problems and unlock rubber's vast potential. His name was Charles Goodyear, and his road to success was long, hard, and often dangerous.
He became fascinated, and he went on a multi-year quest at great loss to himself and in and out of debtor's prison and years and years of suffering, but he remained steadfast.
There's my tooth.
Magnesia, lime, different substances. He almost killed himself by inhaling a cloud of nitric acid gas.
Man, that's my tooth. That's crazy.
Rubber became a total obsession. He was convinced that if he could only figure out how to control this material, its uses would be limitless.
He published this book that has thousands and thousands and thousands of uses for rubber. I've got the book right here. Horse collars, travel bags. He made furniture out of rubber. When he completed his book, he had the first several copies of it made out of rubber pages. And so that to me is like a sterling example of his whimsy and his curiosity, but also what made him so bad at business.
But eventually, Goodyear's fixation with rubber paid off, and one day, quite by accident, he made a breakthrough.
He began experimenting with sulfur. As the story goes, in 1839, he had mixed rubber and sulfur, and it came somehow in contact with a hot stove. And when he came back to look at it later, the rubber had been transformed. It was hardened, but it was still flexible. It was impervious to the effects of heat and cold. And this was his eureka moment. Nobody had really thought about applying heat as a solution to rubber because heat was rubber's great enemy. But sulfur, that proved to be
But this magic answer had, in a way, been found millennia before. Remember those ancient Mesoamericans adding morning glory to their liquid latex? Well, the juice of that plant contains sulfur. Armed with his discovery, Charles Goodyear began to develop a way of processing rubber known as vulcanization.
But unfortunately for Goodyear, that wasn't the end of his troubles. It was sort of the beginning because it proved to be a very, very difficult process to replicate. And while other people figured out ways to mass reproduce products out of vulcanized rubber, his discovery, he was off trying to make ship sails and gaudy balloons that floated off. And he was really a dreamer. He was not a businessman. And so he wound up dying $200,000 in debt.
Goodyear didn't reap the rewards of his discovery, but we certainly have. His process of vulcanization turned rubber from temperamental and sticky into an engineer's dream. In a new industrial age of machinery that was crying out for shock absorbers and airtight seals and flexible tubes, rubber became indispensable. Today, rubber is woven through the fabric of our lives, quite literally in some cases. And rubber is such a fun material. We've played with rubber for thousands of years, and it's still with us in sports from tennis to golf. But while rubber balls can launch themselves up towards the sky, it's thanks to another kind of sticky material that humanity is able to stay up there and not come down, to fly. And that's what we'll be exploring next time.
Mark Mirdovnik, the producer, was Anand Jagatir. It was a BBC Studios audio production.
New comedy on BBC Radio 4 with me, Hugh Dennis, and me, Steve Punk, Route Masters, in which we go on a journey through new and half-remembered knowledge as we attempt to find the most entertaining route between random topics, people, places, and things. We know very little except that we're going to be starting bigger, and over the course of the series, we're going to gradually make our way to eternity. Have you enjoyed putting together your
Running numbers to 100 and swapped it up.
London Dennis, Route Masters, the comedy show that takes the scenic route on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. Starts this Tuesday afternoon at 3.
Oh, fuck it.
BBC News at 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 28th of September. This is Tom Sanders. Good morning.
Good
Israel has
morning.
mounted a wave of attacks on the
Oh,
Lebanese
fuck it.
capital, hitting the headquarters of the Iranian-backed Hezbollah group and its arms stores. The initial strikes were believed to have targeted the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, and destroyed buildings in the south of Beirut. At least 6 people were killed, and the fate of Hassan Nasrallah is unclear. Danny Danon is the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations.
Since October 8, Hezbollah attacked Israel without no provocation. Nasrallah said that the attacks came in order to show solidarity with Hamas. So while we were still counting the bodies of the massacre of October 7th, Hezbollah started to launch rockets, and today we have to stop it. So if it will not work with diplomacy, it will work with our military capabilities.
The IGF said it also attacked targets in the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon, killing several Hezbollah commanders. The US presidential candidate Kamala Harris has made her first visit to the US-Mexico border since becoming the Democrats' nominee. She's announced changes to the immigration rules, which she says will reduce the number of people crossing the border. She also launched an attack on Donald Trump's record on immigration, which is a key pillar of his campaign. Our North America editor, Sarah Smith, reports.
Kamala Harris has faced criticism for not visiting the southern U.S. border for over 3 years. But with this event in Arizona, she attempted to reclaim immigration as an issue in which Democrats can be trusted. She promised to extend recent restrictions that ban asylum claims for migrants who cross the border illegally. Immigration is one of the top concerns for American voters, and it's an issue on which Donald Trump enjoys a significant advantage. Kamala Harris hopes that by pledging to spend more money, hire more border security guards, and invest in machines to detect fentanyl, she can erode some of his support.
More than 40 people have been killed across 5 southeastern US states after Hurricane Helene left a trail of destruction. It made landfall in Florida and was most deadly in South Carolina, where 17 people lost their lives. Helicopters rescued dozens of staff and patients who took refuge from floodwaters on the roof of a hospital in Tennessee, and utility companies are working to restore power to 4 million customers. The former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has described how he considered launching a military raid to retrieve COVID vaccines from a warehouse in the Netherlands. The next step in his memoir, serialised in the Daily Mail, he says he believed the EU was blocking the export of the AstraZeneca doses to the UK because of the pace of Britain's rollout. David Cornock has more.
In March 2021, at the height of the pandemic, 5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were caught up in a row between the UK and the European Union. Boris Johnson, convinced the EU was acting out of spite to block their export, summoned military chiefs to consider a raid to recover them. Mr. Johnson says he was told the plan was feasible, but impossible to do undetected, and the UK might have to explain why it was effectively invading a long-standing NATO ally.
6 rare turtles that washed up on the coast of the UK have been given left home to the Azores by the crew of a Royal Navy warship. HMS Medway took them to the Portuguese archipelago as it crossed the Atlantic to join an international operation against drug smuggling in the Caribbean. Here's Rebecca Drought.
It's thought that juvenile loggerhead turtles were found in March last year were swept from the Caribbean to the eastern seaboard of the United States by strong winds and Atlantic currents. Used to warm waters, they'd become cold-stunned in the sea around the UK and were dehydrated and starving. 4 of the turtles, named Jason, Perrin, Gordon and Hale, were found in Cornwall, while Holly was picked up on the beach in Devon, and Tony was rescued from Anglesey. They were dropped into the Atlantic Ocean off the Azores, watched by the crew of HMS Medway, which had gathered on the flight deck to see them go.
Have a look at the papers in a minute or so, but first the weather forecast, and Matt Taylor's here. Morning, Matt.
Good morning, Tom. Good morning, all. Last, a little bit of respite from the rain at the moment for parts of England, where we've seen the flooding of late. There is more wet and also windy weather to come, though, as it goes through into the second half of Sunday and through Sunday night, so one to keep an eye on. For the time being, though, today, much of England Wales, a dry day, just 1 or 2 showers in North Sea at the moment, which will clear away out into open waters. A few other showers through the day in North West England and Wales, but most will start the day sunny, a bit more cloud into the afternoon, but crucially staying dry. For Northern Ireland, a lot of dry weather to come today, but varying amounts of cloud and 1 or 2 spots of rain. Can't feel that here and there. At least not as breezy as it was yesterday. And in Scotland, the winds are lighter too. Thanks to the brighter weather, we can break the cloud to the south and the east, also across Shetland, but elsewhere in the north and west, around the Highlands, Orkney, Western Isles. Also, plenty of cloud to come today. Some outbreaks of rain on and off. Temperature today 11 to 15 across the country.
Thank you, Matt. Look at the papers now. The Eye describes the latest attacks on Beirut in its front-page headline as Israel's warning to Iran. Its columnist, Patrick Coburn, suggests Benjamin Netanyahu is probably igniting a fire in the region that will never go out. The Guardian says the attempts to kill the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, even if he wasn't harmed, marks a staggering escalation on the Israeli side. In its online coverage, the Daily Telegraph calls it a gamble extraordinaire, challenging Tehran to hit back. According to the Times, there are proposals to increase the cap on university fees by 13.5% over the next 5 years to £10,500. A Whitehall source says there are live discussions between ministers, but any final decision would need to be approved by the Chancellor. Most front pages carry tributes to Dame Maggie Smith, described by the Daily Mirror as a true legend and by her son as Magnificent Maggie. The Guardian's film critic Peter Bradshaw said she was the grandest of grand dames, while writing in the Daily Express, the theatre critic Neil Norman calls her a world-class performer whose appeal crossed generations. The Financial Times reports that Germany and France are calling for an urgent briefing of plans to roll out the EU's biometric border on the 10th of November. They say the main computer system won't be able to cope with the new entry-exit system that will require all non-EU citizens, including British visitors, to register their personal details, including their fingerprints. Look at the papers this morning. This is BBC Radio 4. And now Martha Carney discovers how one of the UK's largest nature recovery projects is taking root in open country.
I've got an amazing view from here, high up in Ashdown Forest, looking across the fields, green trees to the purple of the horizon. It's called Ashdown Forest, it's mainly heathland. And the reason I've come here is that for this week's Open Country, I'm going to find out more about an exciting new nature project called From Weald to Waves. And the idea is to create a wildlife corridor high up in the Weald, all the way down river valleys to the sea. And I'm with Libby Drew, who's coordinating the Weald to Waves project. We've got a lovely morning, haven't we? We have. It's wonderful to be out here. What's the idea behind this? This is a discovery corridor, and we are in one of the most human landscapes in Britain. We've got roads, we've got buildings, and what we wanted to do was bring together everyone who's managing land from the High Weald, where we are here, all the way to the Sussex coast, and to see if we could reconnect the landscape so nature could flow again. And it's going to be 100 miles, isn't it? It's going to be 100 miles plus, Martha. Every day we wake up to more people wanting to join. And that's what's so exciting about this. It's a huge collaboration. And whether they are major land managers of this big estates, and we have many of them in Sussex, or productive farms, or even gardens and councils who have those smaller patches all the way down to window boxes, we have people joining every day. I've been to Net and seen the rewilding work, heard the nightingales, but it's important to think that this project isn't only about rewilding. Absolutely. So rewilding in the sense of allowing ecosystems to restore in their productivity. 75% plus of Sussex.
Ugh.
That's the big question of the green movement, really. And actually, I would argue for us as a society, how do we make nature work? For so long, it has been an externality to our economy, and we're building it back in. We have lawyers working in the corridor. We have economists. We're working with the highways, our railways, our water companies. They're coming to us to ask for our solutions. That's really exciting. Can you imagine gardeners, councils, farmers, and the utility companies working in tandem, really at scale for the first time? Do you think you would have had this level of public support for Weald to Waves even, say, 10 years ago? Martha, I don't even think 3 years ago. And so as the nation is waking up to the need, the farmers are waking up to the need, and I think we're being carried forward on a new energy of a new reimagining of the landscape. Now, the Weald to Waves project is beginning here in Ashdown Forest, looked after by the Conservators of Ashdown Forest, and Mark Infield is one of them. And perhaps we should begin by explaining to people what the Weald is.
No, that's fair enough. The Weald is an ancient word that means wood. But today we understand it as the land that lies between the North Downs and the South Downs, those chalk hills. And we're on the High Weald here because it's really quite hilly.
And now to be an important part of the Weald Waves project, what will you be doing?
Well, we'll go on doing what we've always done, which is trying to protect and manage this very important place. It's changing. I grew up on the edge of Ashdown Forest from the age of 8. There was still Highland cattle. We used to get so excited when we came across them. It was like a beast from the unknown. But in a way, what's very important about this place is that it's part of an ancient landscape. So this open heathland, the 3 species of heather, the gorse that Winnie the Pooh was always falling in and out of. That's what I love about this place, and it's really what gave me my love of nature as a child.
So what will it mean to you personally, the idea that Ashdown Forest is at the start of this new wildlife corridor?
Oh, it's absolutely important for us. We know as scientists that we can't protect Ashdown Forest by being an island. We have to connect, we have to work with our neighbours. And in fact, I spent most of last year on the farms around us talking to our neighbours to see how we can work together. We have to do a lot of grazing on Ashdown Forest. We need the livestock to make sure we keep the heathland. And we can't graze livestock unless we have partners. And that means we have to have relationships with our neighbours. And those relationships is, if you like, exactly what the Weald to Waves corridor is trying to do, but on a larger scale.
We're leaving Ashdown Forest and the Weald behind now to go down through the wildlife corridor, following the River Ouse to the Sussex town of Lewes, where lots of local people have got behind the project. I'm in the heart of Lewes now. I'm standing overlooking the River Ouse in what once was a pretty industrial landscape. It was a railway marshalling yard, and it's now a local nature reserve. And there's a group of people who are really engaged with the idea of creating a wildlife corridor. I'm going to begin with you, Helen Mead. Why are you interested in the idea of the corridor?
No.
A lot of work in mental health and with young people and with older adults, and actually taking action on environmental issues. It's so beneficial to people's mental health and well-being. We're always really trying to reach people who aren't necessarily engaged in this sort of stuff. And if they can see how they're part of a bigger picture, I think that really helps.
Which is something that's very close to your heart, isn't it? It's Caroline Croft from the Southwood Foundation. What kind of work are you doing to help people here in Lewes engage with the corridor idea?
What we try to do is build connections, right out of the corridor. Connections between projects and the people. Well, our landscape is so fragmented, isn't it? And that's one of the problems with biodiversity loss. So one of the areas that we are promoting is rewilding gardens and really bringing people in so that everybody's able to see that they have a role to play, whether it's a flower bed that they've got or a garden, a tree they can plant. Everybody's got a role to play.
Well, someone who's got a lot more than a garden to manage is Jim Brewster, and I can see your title written on your t-shirt, your head greenkeeper at Lewes Golf Club, which aren't normally associated as being great havens for wildlife.
No, they're not. We're trying to get our members to see that the wildlife area and talk about connecting. You've got a field one side of it and the other side, which is Sussex wildlife. And to get their sheep on one side to go, they have to put them in a van, driving that. So we're taking them through our golf course to get to their other fields. So that's the corridor.
So people are teeing up across what you think of beautifully manicured greens, and then a load of sheep come across. How does that work?
It'll be done early morning, so no one will see what happens, and the golf course will be heard.
When you had that, I mean, there are always areas in golf courses, aren't there, that are quite wild. Have you got plans to extend those at all?
So when I started 4 years ago, there's probably about
20 acres that was left to wild, and now we're up to 30 plus. And we're still adding areas that can be rewilded or not be cut.
And have you noticed any differences in the kind of birds or animals or plants that you're seeing because you've increased the wildlife areas?
So we had a bee survey last week on a dull day, but it's only 20 different species of bee, and one was a brown banded carter bee, which isn't found in Sussex. So 4 years when that happened, so I'm quite proud of that.
And now, I guess suitably enough, given we're standing overlooking the River Ouse, I can talk to Matthew Bird, who's your councillor, and you're also from Love Our Ouse. Tell me what you love about the Ouse.
I love the fact that it's always changing and it means so many things to so many people. We used to have ships being built in Lewes and the river was completely straightened. So the river has always had things done to it. And it faces so many pressures now, not just from sewage that we hear about all the time, but from climate change and from development. So Love Our Ouse was set up to encapsulate the love that people feel for the river.
And here on the council, you've been working towards an idea that's gaining momentum, which is to give the river legal rights.
That's right, and it's to recognise the river as an entity in itself, in the way that corporations have rights. So just down the river, on the banks, is Tesco. That has rights of personhood. It's pretty crazy that nature doesn't have those rights. We've been working with lawyers to explore the potential for the river having legal rights, as they do in other countries around the world. But it's not just about the legalities, it's about sort of thinking of ourselves as part of nature. And this is where Will to Waves really helps. Eventually, communities will connect up as nature is connecting up.
Tell me a little bit more about the river. Do you get a fish here?
We do. We get lots of fish. We have an amazing mullet murmuration that occurs here.
I suddenly had an image in my head of 1970s footballers all congregating. But you made a different kind of mullet.
We have that as well, usually on a Saturday night. But no, it's quite a beautiful sight. You see all these mullets sort of swirling around each other, and it's quite an incredible sight.
Before I head off down my journey, continuing along the Ouse, I wanted to ask you all something, which was, if From Wheel to Waves is a success and I come back here in 10 years, what are your hopes?
I would love to see the air so full of insects again that it's a little bit icky, because that's what I remember from my childhood, and I find it really disturbing that you can go out on a nature reserve and not see the effort of insects.
I would like to see just people being able to walk through nature the entire length of the river.
On golf courses, I'd like to see my rough with as many orchids and yellow rattle as possible.
I would like to think that the community is really happy. We do a lot of work with young people and there's a lot of climate anxiety, and I think it'd be great if those children had hope and a better environment to move forward in.
Okay, it's a day. I'm coming back into the news.
You're welcome.
We're heading out of Lewes now on the A277, and just seeing all these cars makes me realise what a crowded part of England this is. Not actually what you'd think of for a wildlife corridor at all. There are around 250,000 people living in the corridor. But actually, that's also an opportunity, because 1,000 gardens are now signed up to the scheme, and there are more than 500 farms, and we're on our way to visit one of them now. This is Iford, a 3,000-acre farm, and walking with me here is Ben Taylor, who manages the farm. What does it mean for the farm being involved in the corridor?
Well, what I hope it will do is allow us to use our hive mind almost to actually deliver investment into nature, to produce an outcome where we can all actually survive as farmers as well. Because we are a business, we've been here 125 years or more, and I hope that it will still be there in another 125 years. And to do that, we've got to have a sustainable financial model. And if we can deliver nature recovery at the same time, then that's a win for everybody.
And is this through something called biodiversity net gain? Just explain that to me.
So biodiversity net gain is an outcome of the Environment Act, and developers, when they develop their building site, have to provide at the end of it the same amount of biodiversity as they had to start with, plus 10%, hence the net gain. And so what they can do is to offset their nature impact, if you like, on other sites. And we're one of those sites where they can buy a biodiversity unit to offset their impact.
So if I were a property developer building a housing estate and I didn't have that much space for wildlife there, I could come and invest in your farm and say, look, here's my biodiversity.
Exactly, yeah. And what we've done over here is we've taken 32 hectares, about 90 acres, and we've created a wildflower meadow. We've also planted some scrub around the edges, and that is our first biodiversity net gain site. This little patch of land in front of us, we've seen hares here now, which we never had a year or two ago before we started doing this. So it's really exciting to see these species come back. And we've got nightingales in the trees over there.
It's a wonderful sight, isn't it?
And it's big as well. It goes all the way over, almost to the horizon over there. We've got a nature recovery plan, a vision, I suppose, which sees all of this really poor quality arable land and some really wet grassland that we've got, which we'll go to later. And actually, just restore it back to nature. And then we keep just the most fertile bits of arable land in food production.
I'm sure you have heard these arguments. Why give over 2,000 acres that could be used for growing food to wildflowers?
Well, we're not stopping growing food, but I think actually it's a much wider point than that, and that you have to have nature to be able to grow food, because you need the pollinators, you need the ecosystems, the food chains, and the food webs, and the soil webs, and everything else to actually be able to grow food sustainably in the long term. And so I kind of like to think of it as a reservoir maybe that can spread out across the area, a reservoir of biodiversity that can help everybody else grow their food. Because something's flowering right away from beginning of April right the way through to, I don't know, end of October probably. My favourite is Lady's Bedstraw. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, what a good name.
I think it was used for stuffing mattresses.
It must have been. Yeah, but only for ladies.
You men can just smell all you like, yeah. A couple of people who know all about the habitat here at Islington from a scientific point of view are Rachel Bicker, who's an ecologist with Wheeled to Waves, and also Jasmine Cacioppo, who's a student at Southampton University. Welcome to this lovely meadow.
Hello. Hi there.
Hi. So, scrubland, I know, it's like superfood, isn't it, for all sorts of species?
Yes, a really important nesting habitat for birds in particular, for foraging, nesting in, even sleeping in overnight. So we're seeing some amazing results with nightingales at the moment. And nightingale require a specific kind of scrub that's quite mature, very dense, and they're nesting very low to the ground. What we'd like to see is more of those species that have declined. Things like redback shrike could end up coming back. And we certainly have redback shrike moving through our landscapes every autumn and spring migration. So never say never that they won't take up home in a lovely farm such as here at Islington.
They've got a great nickname, haven't they? Is it the butcher bird?
Yes, that's right. They're slightly grisly habit of sometimes impaling their food and keeping it for a rainy day, literally.
That's really important when you're creating a wildlife corridor to be able to find out whether it's working or not, and that's where monitoring comes in. Jasmine, you're a student, Southampton University, and that's exactly what you've been doing, isn't it?
So I've been helping Rachel by going along to these sites and looking in pitfall traps, essentially cups that have been put into the ground in little dug holes, and we send them back to the lab and count the numbers and the species of beetles here.
And it looks like Rachel is one she's prepared earlier. I've just realised what I'm looking at is literally beetle juice.
Yeah, there it is.
We've got the wildflower meadow here, but you're going to take us to another part that you're using to gain biodiversity credits.
Well, we're going to go and look at the Lewis Brooks, which is a really nice little wetland running down to the River Ouse. What we've got is this enormous floodplain of the Ouse, and the river's embanked. But during the winter, the water levels rise up. And where we're standing now, we'll probably be nearly a metre underwater. But what's really good is that when the water goes down, if you can retain some of it in little low spots and keep it in the ditch through the summer, then that's so good for the wetland birds.
What kind of birds can you see here then?
Well, only 6 weeks ago, there was lapwings everywhere, and we had green shank and red shank, and they were nesting and breeding, and it was wonderful.
But just looking out, it's a really interesting landscape, isn't it? You've got the rust red of the dock plants and then bright white of the chalk,
Yeah.
so characteristic of the Sussex Downs.
Yeah, and that's where Gideon Mantell found his fossils. And then beyond that, on the crown of the hill there, you've got Mount Caburn, big remnants of an Iron Age fort there. And you sort of get a sense of how long this landscape's been lived in. And behind us, Lewes Castle and Lewes Priory as well, which was demolished by Henry VIII. But the monks at the Priory were the first ones to begin to drain this land and presumably therefore to farm it.
Oh, so it was originally wetland then, was it? So you're just restoring it to its original landscape?
Yeah. So the monks of the Priory had actually begun to drain this landscape and to dig ditches, and presumably they began to farm it at that point as well.
Now, which way is Newhaven? Because that's where we're heading next. But following the Ouse.
Newhaven is directly down the valley there.
The wildlife corridor is called From Wheel to Waves, and here are the waves. This is where the River Ouse makes it into the sea to Newhaven Harbour, and the sun's come out and the sea really is bright blue. Here with me is George Short, who's a marine conservationist here in Newhaven. Tell me about your project.
So I work on a project called the Sussex Kelp Recovery Project, the UK's largest marine rewilding project. So it extends for 300 square kilometres along our coastline, which is protected, to recover the lost kelp forests of Sussex.
For people who may not have heard of the lost kelp forests of Sussex, why do they matter?
So historically we had a dense and thriving kelp bed off of our coastline. Kelp themselves are like a large brown seaweed. They act a little bit like a tree, so like an underwater forest, and they have huge amounts of biodiversity associated with them. So a single kelp plant can have over 80,000 individual animals living on it, and that's just one. So if you think about that,
80,000?
Exactly. So a huge amount of diversity. They have a role in locking up carbon in the short term, and they act as nursery habitats. So we have a thriving dolphin and seal population in Sussex as well, and we have loads of really cool footage of them moving over the kelp beds, coming in to feed on the small invertebrates and fish that live within them. So having that forest on the seabed really supports all the way through and up the ecosystem as well.
Why have they been lost?
So in the 80s, there was a rise in trawling, which drags heavy gear along the seabed. And so because of that, it directly rips up any kelp that's attached to the seabed. So at that point, we lost 96% of our kelp forest here.
What difference will it make, do you think, being part of the Wheel to Waves project?
It's really, really important. Everything ultimately ends up at the sea. So if you think about things like too much sediment in the water, which we can get from changing our rivers and certain agricultural practices, that will mean that there's less light able to penetrate to the seabed. And if you're a photosynthesizing organism, such as kelp, you're not able to do that if there's less light available.
And are they coming back?
So it's early days. So the seabed has been protected now for 3 years, and we're starting to see things like mussel beds recovering. They're really important because it's what the kelp will attach onto. And we can see that there are areas bigger than football pitches of mussel beds starting to come back.
Well, we've come to the end of our day following the River Ouse all the way down from Ashdown Forest to Newhaven, and Libby Drew from the Wheel to Waves project has been with me all day. And when I look around this area, it's such a crowded part of southeast England. The idea of a 100-mile wildlife corridor does seem in a way to be an impossible dream.
I think that's such an important point. The challenges are going to be monumental, but we have action happening. We have 20% of that land, all of those 100 miles, 20% of that is already mapped and pledged to the corridor.
In quite a short space of time.
In just a year. We've got all of these gardens coming up to provide the stepping stones. We've got councils joining. We've got our infrastructure, and that original line on the map, that green wiggly line that traversed all of that complexity, is coming to life.
Open Country was presented by Martha Carney and produced by Becky Ripley. It was a BBC Audio Bristol production for Radio 4. For Farming Today this week, here's John Wilson.
This Cultural Life, where my guests reveal their most important influences and inspirations.
I have to just think I did play this to the best of my ability.
Dame Judi Dench.
Everyone else in the cast. It's like a recipe.
Sir Paul McCartney.
My dad played the piano. He'd left school at 14, but he was very interested in words.
Whoopi Goldberg, and many more.
The act of having access to my imagination is the thing that got me going.
This Cultural Life with me, John Wilson. Listen on BBC Sounds.
And you can hear John every Thursday morning at 11 o'clock in This Cultural Life here on Radio 4. But now it's time for Farming Today this week with Kaz Graham.
Morning. Coming up today, we have planning.
There are already local groups organising to stop pylons being built, and yet we can't have renewable energy without being able to move the electricity around the country.
Payments.
I've done 30 years of environmental schemes. I'm really passionate about the conservation work I do, and then there's just no options for us at the moment.
And pounds. Millions of pounds.
If Treasury are thinking, oh, it's just whether it's 100 million or 200, it's a small amount compared to 2.4 billion. What they don't realise is it will just completely upset the apple cart.
But we start with one of our favourite topics. If favourite is the right word, the weather. It's been pretty grim for some parts of the country this week, with weather warnings for rain and flooding across some parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Well, as you're probably aware, the weather this last year has been extremely challenging for food producers right across the UK. This year's apple harvest, which is just underway, is also feeling the effect. According to Avalon Fresh, a wholesaler which supplies supermarkets, this year's yield is good. Fruit sizes are variable because pollination of blossom time took time.
Fucking Facebook, you take the piss. What the fuck? You're wankers. I mean, what the fuck? I don't know. I said a few words and I thought, well, I'll fucking change that. And I'll promote the fucking pawnbrokers, right? And I promoted it. I made it look shit off. But it just went back to where it was. What the fuck? All that bullshit done. This fucking God is not even there. I mean, it's just fucking shit. Facebook, you're fucking shit. You wasted my fucking time. You sick bastard. Come on. Hurry up. Fucking Facebook. What load of shit. Little bastard. Fuck me. I was like having a conversation with the customers. No, not customers. H&T pawnbrokers, right? And it's 175 today. And he's saying, cash. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm fucking all that. But I in my back. I remember. And I put all down there's football there as well. And that bollocks, right? And fucking, I think the crystal balls still there, but the bit at the bottom where it's got the scales, and the fucking, you press fancy, blood deals, like big deals, 100% satisfaction and bollocks and fucking, and it's got the little chat with that lady in, and it's all fucking cool. What it was to what I changed it to. And it was fucking not even changed at all. It was a load of bollocks. Fucking Facebook, I'm gonna smash your fucking faces, you little cunt. Fuck. You pissed me off, I can't believe it. Fucking spastics, yeah. Facebook, you're fucking spastics, you cunts. Fuck off, cunts. I'm sat outside fucking freezing, doing all this shit, right? Fucking like, yeah, come on, get it right and make it right and go promote the fucking people brokers. We'll give you category gold and all that. And I thought I'd fucking do that. And I've done it. But no, it's fucking cool. Fucking Facebook, you're fucking shit, you know what I mean? Bullshit, whatever. I'm fucking a load of bollocks. Go there at all, you know. Fucking forget all that shit. Facebook, you're a robbing bastard. You're a scammer. You're a scammer. You actually let people do crimes. You motherfucker. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I met those already. I had 5 years up. Some reviews now. I buy all this shit and I'll give it all away. It's fucking crazy, really. I do it because I think it's a good idea. Really, you know? Every, oh, well, Oh, and it'd be better than 10 off. I will. I got my bag. I'll just go in the bag and I'll fucking sort it all out. I've got more stuff in the bag. A few bags here. I'll do that. I've got more. Because I don't think I'll put enough in there really, but it's all right. When I accept it, much. They'll be like, fuck that. I don't want it now. And but there's a lot of people that don't want it. It's fucking mental. It's fuck. They don't care about their kids. Their kids are suffering. There's not many people like me at all, really. I think, who just does what it does. I think it's a great idea because of the situation where my mother put me in the section. I didn't want to be fucking locked up in the section. It's fucking bollocks. My daughter was scared she would to make sure I was okay. Because it was fucked up. My mum done that because I was happy. She didn't like that. She didn't like her neighbours. So she didn't like most. We gotta say, I mean, fucking hell, I've done the best I could. I drove that family up to Derby to see their dad. I decorated their home. I got them Christmas presents. And my mum didn't like it at all. I didn't understand why. And she was arguing with the kids on the bus. Yeah. After that, my mum with me, I was suddenly mental health. What the fuck? You know, fucking happens, getting an ambulance. Are you serious? Yeah, go on. I thought I'd be alright for a little while, you know. Maybe a little break or whatever, maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever. But no, it went on for fucking 18 years. Because they're sick as fuck. You know, the fucking doctors are shit. Shit. The police are fucking shit. Shit. You know what I mean? Wankers. This is what they are. Wankers. Piss me off, you know what I mean? Like I say that. I'm the piano man. How the fuck can you manage to do what it's done to me? Are they sick as fuck or what? I mean, they're insane. Crazy bastards. The police are shit. The council are shit. The NHS are fucking shit. I really got to think about that. It's crazy. You're on your keep on. Oh, Jesus, savings. Oh, really? 30% off. That's great, yeah. last 3 days. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know. Just telling those. No, I don't think I'm ever going to stop. I'm going to be on machinery for the rest of my life. I'll just spend 50 quid. shouldn't really spend 50 quid. What the fuck? I want to get my gold out. I mean, I'm fucking. La la la. I remember that. Hello. How are you? Come on, tell me. Oh, yeah. What's up with that? Oh, yeah. That's the thing that's saying you've got to turn the route right and turn it back and then turn it back on. I'm going to have to turn off here. Get this bloody print. Yeah. Fantastic. Yes, oh yes. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Yeah. I'm eternal. I'm a reason every day. Fucking hell.
Time to check in on our little sweetie pie.
Oh, she's taking a nap.
Probably dreaming about the time she shot Mr. Burns.
She's just like Clark Kent. When there's lots of excitement, she's nowhere to be found. Nighty night, sweetie.